Hello, welcome to Transfer Talk. Kyle Walker starts for and captains Manchester City today in a pre-season friendly against the team he could end up joining. Updates on that game against Bayern Munich, and we'll have an in-depth interview with Declan Rice. Bayern Munich aren't giving up on their pursuit of Harry Kane. The latest on the Tottenham striker's future is coming up. Mauricio Pochettino wants a new midfielder and he's told us the club are working on bringing one in. We'll hear from the Chelsea boss this hour. And West Ham have a list of plenty of players they're targeting, with Manchester United's Scott McTominay one of them. A very good afternoon to you at home and to those watching on the Sky Sports News YouTube channel. We've got Nabeed Haroon, Sam Obaseki and James Savundra on set with us today. But we start with Declan Rice, who made a club record £105 million move to Arsenal from West Ham this summer. He's been speaking to our senior reporter Melissa Reddy about the move and how he's settling into the club.
I felt at home already, to be honest with you. I've not felt like a new player, a new person. It's felt really normal, which is obviously really good.
You spoke about the manager having a big influence on your decision to join Arsenal. It was no secret that you were the hottest property on the market. All the teams were in for you this summer. What about his pitch to you and about Arsenal made you choose them?
I think just the way Arsenal have played over the last 2-3 years. I think there's always a narrative around Arsenal that, you know, they're not going to win the Premier League or they haven't been good enough. But I didn't see it in that way at all. I see it in a way that he's improved the squad every year.
Yeah.
The players have improved individually. Everyone's gone up another level. And when I spoke to him, just the way he said about how he wanted me to play, where he sees me play and the vision he has for Arsenal, you know, for me, it's really exciting now to be a part of this project that, you know, Arsenal can get back to the big time and win some trophies. I don't think they're far off at all. Obviously, this year there's going to be pressure on us to win. And I think we want that pressure.
There'll obviously be a lot of talk about how expensive you were, which is not on you. You don't dictate your price.
Of course not.
Yeah. Do you feel that will be a little bit unfair, that people will be talking about you and everything you do in the frame of that price?
Yeah, of course. I feel like, I just said it in an interview before, like, I just try to take everything in my stride, you know. Like, I can't control what I've been bought for. That's obviously determined on, you know, how well I've played consistently over the last couple of years and what West Ham have obviously set that price at. Look, I try to take it all in my stride. I've not really thought about the price tag once. You know, I've been bought to Arsenal for a reason. That's to perform, to play football, to try and add to the squad, you know, to try and win trophies. I'm not going to get involved in price tags. Of course, people have always got opinions. You can't please everybody. Someone's always got something to say. But what's important is that the manager, you know, you've got his support, you've got your family's support, people that are close to you, you know, that's all that matters. So, yeah, I won't try to think about that too much. And to be honest with you, I haven't already. Like I said, it's football. You know, a lot of players have been bought for 80, 90, 100 million. It's our profession. It's just down to us to perform. So, yeah, over the 6 years, hopefully I can repay that price tag.
So, hoping to repay the price tag there, Declan Rice. Great to hear from him. But Sam, what does he have to do to repay that price tag?
I don't think he has to do anything that's out of character, to be honest. I think the main thing for him is availability and consistency and adding to the quality Arsenal already have. You know, he spoke about what Arsenal have been doing for the last few years and what he's watched and how he thinks Arteta can improve the player he is. And I think when you look at the back end of Arsenal season last year, I think they were missing that quality, you know, going into the tougher times in the season. I think Declan Rice, because of what we've seen and the quality he already has, he's definitely going to be that player that can replace Xhaka, that can be a leader when the tough times come and be someone to rely on. And I said to Nabeed when he was talking that I think he could be a future captain. Obviously, they've got other players, but you can already see the relationship he has with Saka and Nketiah. You know, he's that type of player that lifts the spirits, and he's going to be amazing for Arteta.
Yeah, he is a leader as well. What does he need to do, James?
I think he probably was slightly more expensive than Arsenal hoped for. I think they were looking around £70-80 million, but the way he can repay that is by transitioning Arsenal from challengers to champions. And we saw towards the end of last season, they fell away, winning just 2 of their last 8 matches when they, at one point, had an 8-point lead at the top. So it really is a clear message from Arsenal that last season wasn't a fluke. they want to build upon that. They want to be challenging Manchester City, and with the squad they have now, they can do that. I think for him to repay the price tag, a decade playing at the highest level, for Arsenal becoming a legacy player like Vieira has, like Thierry Henry, like Tony Adams in the past.
A decade.
I think he's got a chance. I think he really has a good chance. You look at his age and also the growth potential he's got as well. And I think, as you were saying there, when the going gets tough, a player like Rice with his leadership qualities can hopefully fill the void when there are moments in games where Arsenal are losing control, as they did against Southampton, as they did against West Ham and Liverpool during the season. I think if he has a decade at Arsenal, then I think he could achieve a huge amount if they keep building the way they have been.
But why was he the one they targeted and were willing to pay this money for?
I think he's one of the best players in the Premier League. Considering he was playing for West Ham, that's something to sort of bear in mind there. He was still sort of showing up as one of the best players in the league. Often you'll find, Manchester City have 11 of the best players. For me, when I saw the signing sort of happening, and initially it was linked to Chelsea, and Sam was just saying there, he's devastated he didn't go to Chelsea. It's because every team in the league would love to have Declan Rice. I think Man City, who were also linked to him, would have always also loved him as well. And I always felt like Arsenal needed the next signing, but who that was, considering how good the 11 was, would have been really difficult. They've gone and signed Rice, and although I don't think this is a direct comparison, it's like the Van Dijk signing, where they needed to go up to the next level, so they went and bought one of the best players in his position, probably the best in his position in the league, and now they've filled the void with Xhaka going and improved on that area, just like Van Dijk did at Liverpool. And you'd think it should elevate Arsenal from where they've gone 5th, 2nd to now 1st.
What does it say about Arsenal? Because this time last year, no one could have envisaged that Declan Rice, one of the best players in that position in the Premier League, if not the best, would be going to Arsenal. That's how much they've changed in the last year. What does it say about them?
I think it says a lot, but also, like Declan said in that interview, you could see the progress that they were making from when Arteta came into the team, the signings he was making, the age profile that he was bringing in as well, and you could see what he was trying to do. I think Arteta even said himself they were a few phases ahead of what he had envisioned. But at the same time, if you're a young player in the Premier League or even in the world, and you see the Arsenal team, you see the atmosphere that they're building at the Emirates and the football that they're playing, you're going to be thinking to yourself, this is a perfect environment for me to improve and battle for the title. And because they proved that last season, you're going to look at this team and say, if I come into this team, I can definitely help them do that. And I think Declan Rice has saw that and seen the friends that he plays with for England as well, and seen that it's perfect fit.
The talent ID of Arsenal, Edu and Arteta has been pretty good so far. Ben White, who obviously arrived initially, started at centre-back, they realised, let's push him out to right-back. Aaron Ramsdale's done well, Zinchenko, Jesus. I think Timber's an unbelievable signing, especially for the price. So you're sort of going, he basically doesn't get signings wrong, and Rice is pretty much a given that he'll do very well at Arsenal. So it's very, very encouraging signs for Arsenal.
Very encouraging. They finished second, of course, in the Premier League. The ones who won the title were Manchester City in action right now against Bayern Munich. You can see they're 1-0 up. James McAtee had a very good loan of Sheffield United last season, gave them the lead after 21 minutes. But the headline here is that Kyle Walker, we know that Bayern Munich want to sign him. He's currently playing for Manchester City, and he starts and captains the side. It's a strong side as well. Edison, Walker, Stones, Diaz, Ake, Rico Lewis is in central midfield with Kovacic and McAtee. Bernardo Silva and Jack Grealish are on the wings with Julian Alvarez up front. But Manchester City against Bayern Munich, high profile friendly, this one, pre-season match out in Japan, and McAtee has given Manchester City a 1-0 lead. Now to Liverpool and their search for a new midfielder. They've had a bid worth £40 million rejected by Southampton for Romeo Lavia. It's understood Southampton want around £50 million. Now, one source has told us that Chelsea are also interested and keeping an eye on the situation. And David Ornstein from The Athletic is reporting that Liverpool are set to return with an improved offer. This is what Lavia's current manager, Russell Martin, had to say about his future.
The latest is, I think it's been very public. I think that's where it's at. I'll speak to Jason after the game to see if anything's changed, Jason Wilcox, and not fobbing it off on him. But it's not I don't control that area. My job is to coach the players on the pitch. And Romeo played 45 minutes tonight. It was good for him. It was good for us because he may still be here. I don't know. He might not.
Do you think he'll be at the club by the end of the transfer window?
Football often defies logic, and as a manager here, I have to be prepared for everything really. So we'll have to wait and see.
So Romeo Lavia at Southampton at the moment, Nabeed, what type of midfielder is he?
Well, he's brilliant in possession. I know people have sort of described him as a 6, but we've sort of said a few times that he probably suits playing as a little bit more of a box-to-box type midfielder because he's so competent on the ball. But again, he's 19 years old, so this might be one of those situations whereby currently his skill set is a little bit raw. He goes to Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp says, we need you to play as a 6 because Fabinho may not be here, which we don't know for sure yet. And he sort of says, sit in, you've got the skill set in possession, now you've got to build a little bit of sort of better anticipation off the ball. You do all of that and you're essentially a carbon copy of Fabinho, but a little better in possession. And he was modelled on Fernandinho. I read a really long article, I think it was from The Athletic, that basically spoke about when he came to City, City said, you will be the next Fernandinho. Then, of course, they stumbled across probably the best holding midfielder in world football in Rodri, and that sort of stunted Lavia's growth. But I think in terms of what you see at the moment is we might be sort of looking at one of the next versions of Fernandinho.
And if we're talking about that price tag, if Southampton get what they want for him, which is £50 million, he would be the most expensive player to be sold from a championship club. Remember, they've rejected £40 million. Well, only Nathan Ake's gone for more than that, for 41. You see Maddison and Barnes were around that. And then you've got Ollie Watkins, Moussa Sissoko, João Pedro and Jude Bellingham on that list as well. So it would be significantly more if Southampton get what they want. But James, I know it's going to sound a strange question, this, because I know that Southampton, they got relegated, right? But with Lavia and others in their current squad who cost not very much and are worth significantly more, have they started to get their recruitment right? Because they used to have it, they were the best in the Premier League at it. Then things tailed away. Are they getting it right now?
That's the issue. They got it right in the past, but that was from a position of strength when they were selling players while they were a Premier League club. They're doing so from the Championship, and the new owners came in last summer and they bought 15 players over the course of 2 transfer windows. Ultimately, the transfer policy in August last year was bringing in players of immense talent like Lavia, who even Chelsea were interested in after he played 3 or 4 matches for Southampton. That's how highly they rated him at that point in time. Just shows the fact that they got it wrong, but also they maybe got it wrong. There are other factors there with a managerial situation which they didn't get right at various points in the season. But it did feel like a big risk at the time. Majority of the players signed under the age of 25, most of them under the age of 21. But if Lavia goes for £50 million, Ward-Prowse, I know he's in a slightly different bracket. He came through the academy. But even before the new owners came in, Kyle Walker-Peters, Tino Livramento signed for just £5 million, and in this window, we're talking about him potentially going for around £35-40 million. And also, you've got the likes of Sam Edozie and Juan Laros, also left from Manchester City. Gavin Bazunu had a difficult season, but these are players, there's a massive growth potential in them and a massive chance to make money on them. So, while Southampton fans, I think, will be immensely disappointed with what happened last season, they've got a very bloated squad at the moment as well. If they can make up for that by selling these players well, put themselves in a situation where they can get back in the Premier League, but in a different mode, I think. The last few seasons at Southampton, I think, have been a disaster. They've been in and around the relegation zone. They probably need to go down to the Championship, reset and go back to the Premier League. They've got all this money. This looks like the model they're going to have at the moment. Buy players young, sell them high. They would ideally do so from the Premier League, but they've certainly got an eye for talent.
It worked for them in the past when they were bringing players through the youth system, wasn't it, with Lallana, Shaw, etc. as well. But Nabeed, in terms of Liverpool's midfield, how could it look like? How could it look next season?
Completely different to what it looks like now. I think Liverpool fans have been screaming for more creativity, more goals from midfield. It's an often criticism of that midfield that they don't contribute enough goals going forward. And one of the signings, Dominic Szoboszlai, got 6 goals and 8 assists in the Bundesliga last year. The entire Liverpool midfield that played in that midfield 3 contributed to 14 goals in total. So just in one player, they've definitely changed the dynamic. Then McAllister, I think, is maybe the sort of long-term replacement for Gini Wijnaldum, someone who's incredibly good in possession, barely gives the ball away, and can play as a left-sided 8, can also drop in as a 6 occasionally, and then that last spot is critical. But if that is Lavia, then you've got a very, very attacking midfield there that may need help, and that might be Trent, but possibly coming in and playing as a 6. I think the good thing for Liverpool will be there's now options which they haven't had over the last few years, and different types of options and different types of solutions.
Yeah, OK, so Liverpool still wanting Lavia. Next, we're crossing live to Madrid. Will Kylian Mbappe end up a Real Madrid player this summer, or will it be next year? Welcome back. This is Transfer Talk, and with us to discuss the latest transfer deals from La Liga is Spanish football expert Fernando Calas. Fernando, great to see you as ever. Now, we've got to start with Kylian Mbappe. I'm sure you're not surprised. Now, a move to Saudi Arabia could be on the cards, but we all know that he wants to play for Real Madrid. What do you think will happen this summer?
Well, there have been a low in activities here in Madrid from the last few days. Complete silence, not even leaks from the club since PSG decided to leave Mbappe behind from their preseason trip to Asia. So I think that people here, they're not getting their hopes up regarding Mbappe because of what happened last year. You know, it's always good to remember. You said that he wants to play to Real Madrid, but he could have done that last year on a free transfer, and he decided to resign with PSG. And now this circus again, it's a transfer saga that nobody knows how it's going to end. So I repeat, people here in Madrid, they're not getting their hopes up.
They're not getting their hopes up for this summer specifically, or do you actually mean even next summer when he's potentially available for free, not even getting their hopes up about that either?
I think that people are a little skittish and a little cautious, mainly because of what happened last year. It's good to remember that last year he could have come in a free transfer, you know, and people here in Madrid, we were all talking about like him as a Real Madrid player from last year. And then suddenly, like surprisingly, shockingly, he decided to resign with Paris Saint-Germain. And now this circus again. So it's hard to read what Mbappe really wants, you know? And I think that's why there is very like this really silence from the club, not even leaks, you know? I think that Real Madrid is being really cautious right now. They're playing with their cards really close to their chest because, honestly, I think that nobody knows what's going to happen. And anything that, like, Mbappe decides wouldn't be a surprise to anybody because it's really unpredictable right now. It's so much money from Saudi Arabia. And after what happened last summer, you know, it's just people are really skittish and really cautious and really scared to what's going to happen.
So that news of Mbappe's future, I mean, he's still at Paris Saint-Germain at the moment. He's been linked with Saudi Arabia. There's been talk of a loan, even a loan to the Premier League. It's a big story over here. Is it as big out there, even though there is a little bit of cautiousness as to whether he'll go to Real?
It's the biggest story. And Real Madrid, you have to read. Sometimes you have to read the acts from the clubs to understand what they think. In Real Madrid, they lost the biggest player, that is Karim Benzema, and they just signed like a backup player in Joselu, a 30-year-old striker that is mainly like a squad filler, you know. So they didn't give their number 9 jersey to anyone. So it's a sign that you have to read like really careful because it's Real Madrid going to go into the season with no center forward at all. And they're not negotiating to Harry Kane. That is something that their coach, Carlo Ancelotti, wanted in the beginning of the summer. So that's what I'm saying. It's just, it is the biggest story here in Madrid. People are really tense and really anxious about it. But it's a complicated deal. That's why I think that it's the silence surrounding Real Madrid and they being really careful on how they negotiate and how the information regarding that negotiations with Mbappe, they're now really tight-lipped about it.
So one thing that did get done very quickly was Jude Bellingham. How excited are the fans to see him this season?
Wow, amazing. It settled up really well, like really quickly. We are seeing the images of their training in the United States. And because Real Madrid doesn't have a center forward right now, you know, waiting for this Mbappe transfer saga and transfer circus to get used to. So he's the centerpiece of this midfield right now. You know, Ancelotti is testing many variations, tactical variations, with him as a centerpiece on the midfield. Sometimes he's playing close to Vinicius and Rodrigo up front. Sometimes he's playing as a holding midfielder close to Tchouaméni back. One thing that we are sure about Bellingham, and he's going to be the centerpiece of this midfield this season and going forward. Him and Vinicius Junior, I think that they're both going to be the biggest stars of Real Madrid for the next decade.
So that's Real Madrid. We haven't talked much about Barcelona. We know that they've got their financial struggles. Will they be in the market for new signings? Do they have to sell a few first?
Well, they are actually close to business because of what you said. They don't have any flexibility at all. They lost their Camp Nou stadium for the next 5 seasons because of their, renovations, they're revamping. It was a very languishing stadium. So they don't have money, basically. No, they have no flexibility to sign players. But there is João Felix. And João Felix said publicly that he wants to play for Barcelona. He won't play for Atletico Madrid this season. It's very clear about it. But can Barcelona afford, a deal as a loan or as a transfer? We don't know yet. So João Felix could be this big last signing that Barcelona could make, but we still don't know. Benfica wants him back. Galatasaray, it's said to be also interesting. So we'll see, but we should not expect any other big signings from Barcelona.
What other deals should we keep an eye out for in the next few weeks?
I think Gonçalo Ramos, the attacker from Benfica, he could be the next domino to fall after Mbappe and Harry Kane. If something happens, if they leave Paris Saint-Germain and Tottenham, he should be the next man in line to both players because he's young, he's talented, he's an ascending player, and Benfica would love to deal with him because it's what Benfica does. They develop players really well and they sell them for a lot of money.
Fernando, great to speak to you. Thank you.
Take care. Have a good day.
Right, coming up, Tottenham could be in the market for a new defender. Plus, we'll hear from Mauricio Pochettino, who says that the club are working on signing a new midfielder. Tottenham in pre-season action today. Harry Kane will captain the side, but Bayern Munich are increasingly confident that they can get him from Tottenham this summer. They believe Kane will become a Bayern player if they can agree a fee. The two clubs can agree a fee, but they haven't been able to do that just yet. OK, right. James, who holds the power in all of this? Bayern, Tottenham, Kane?
Well, I think 2 years ago, Spurs held more of the power because Kane had 3 years left on his contract, but now he's just got 1 year left, and it feels like as the days tick along, the power becomes more to Harry Kane and potentially more to Bayern Munich as well. Their hand is being strengthened each day because it looks unlikely Kane is going to sign a contract with Spurs. That may happen at some point, but it doesn't look like he's very close to doing that at this moment in time. So it does feel like Kane does hold more of the cards, albeit Spurs still have him in this transfer window. This is the last transfer window they can guarantee they get a big fee for him, because in January, if he's still a Spurs player, he can start looking at and speaking to different clubs, like potentially Bayern Munich if he didn't go there this summer, and sign a pre-contract agreement 6 months before the end of his contract. So Spurs would insist on selling him for big money in this window. That's why they have these dialogue and conversations open with Bayern at the moment, because they are so desperate not to sell him to a Premier League club. They're also so desperate not for him to leave to another Premier League rival next summer for free. So it does feel like Bayern Munich are in a good position here at the moment. And Harry Kane, I think no avenue he's closed off for himself at the moment. But I think those in Germany feel real confidence that he could be heading that way.
Do you all agree that it's Kane and Bayern here? Yeah. I mean, remember, he is still a Tottenham player. They've got some power.
Yeah, I don't think they do, though. And I think it's going to be really tough for Postecoglou, who's started a new journey at a new club. He's got so much to think about, and I think he's almost got the baggage of the last few managers that have been dealing with the Harry Kane situation and the transfer rumours. And I think he's probably in the most vulnerable position because he doesn't really have a say. Like James said, he's got a year left on his contract. If he does decide to play out the season and the Spurs board decide to keep him, then he's just going to have it hanging over his season when he can realistically be in a position where he's starting afresh. He's still got quality players that he can build a team around. And I think it's better for them to sort the situation out as soon as possible rather than it just being that shadow that everyone's constantly thinking about.
I do wonder, though, if Kane wants to leave for free. Because in the history books, and obviously he's always asked about the history books, he's probably one of the best players to have ever played in the Premier League. And he would be leaving for £0. You know, obviously, so I think some players will definitely think about these things because they don't want to go down in the history books as a player.
So on a personal level, rather than the fact that he doesn't want Tottenham to get nothing.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably two sides to it. He obviously loves Tottenham as a football club, and he obviously would like Tottenham to gain some benefit from him leaving. But also on top of that, he will be a player that's eventually gone to Bayern Munich for nothing. And he is actually worth, at a point, people were saying 150, 200 million pounds. So I do wonder if Harry Kane is maybe thinking about that to some extent.
I think he just wants to win trophies. I think he knows he's at the peak of his power. He's 30 years old now. He scored 30 goals in the Premier League last season. He knows what he's capable of. Any team that he goes to in the world, it seems like he's going to have more of an opportunity to win trophies besides Spurs, who, you know, they're going to be in a rebuild. And even if they do get Champions League football, like you said earlier, I don't think that will be enough for him. I think he needs those accolades to add to his already incredible goal-scoring career.
Do you have the same sympathy for Postecoglou that Sam does?
As a new manager, and in all fairness, I think most fans, including Arsenal fans on social media, actually quite like him. I wonder how long that'll last when the season starts, but at the moment there's a feeling towards him that, yeah, he's refreshing, he's honest, he says things as they are, which I think he had that reputation when he was at Celtic as well, and also he's got an idea of how he likes to play football, similar to Arteta, Ten Hag, all these managers that came to the Premier League. That's an encouraging sign for football fans and for him as well. But then, at the same time, he's got the one player that can essentially determine how Spurs play, because he's your focal point. He's also Spurs' playmaker at times. And so if you lose him, it completely disbands and changes his plan for the season, because Richarlison's a completely different profile. There probably isn't another Harry Kane out there in world football that Spurs can afford. He then would have to figure out ways to spend the Harry Kane money, and all of a sudden, this plan that he might be building for this season, he can't build as fluidly because he's got to have a plan B, C, D if something happens with Kane or if he leaves.
Yeah. I think he's been put in an awful position. It's his dream job, isn't it, to work in the Premier League? You consider the incredible journey that Ange Postecoglou's been on as a man to get him to this point. Australia, Japan, Celtic, and now he's got this job in the Premier League, and there should be an immense amount of excitement, but already you get the sense he's getting tired of these questions around Harry Kane's future, and it's completely natural for him to be asked those questions. In an ideal world, this situation should have been sorted out long before Postecoglou joined. It would have been so interesting to be in those conversations between Daniel Levy and Postecoglou, because surely he'd have asked him about what's going on with Harry Kane. Ideally, there would have been a deadline, but I think Spurs are still hanging out to a bit of hope that Kane will stay and he will sign a new contract. But it's been such a wretched start to his life there, because they've not got any centre-backs in yet. Tonight, they've got a game against Singapore going on shortly when Ben Davies and Christian Romero are playing at centre-back together. The captain, Hugo Lloris, isn't on the tour. He wants out. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg could be on his way out as well. This Harry Kane issue isn't going away, and they've not really had any meaningful friendlies in pre-season. So what should be a really exciting start of a new era has already been plagued by the same problems which have dominated Spurs for the last few years.
We'll get to their defensive issues in just a moment, but Sky in Germany, Florian Plettenberg is reporting that David Raya is on the list for Bayern Munich, OK, but a permanent deal is not an option, so if at all, Bayern are considering a loan for David Raya, the Brentford goalkeeper who's been brilliant for them, and before that Blackburn as well. James, what has Thomas Frank had to say?
Well, the weekend he was speaking and said that he's perhaps a little bit surprised that David Raya is still at the football club, and thought he may potentially could have gone by now, and he's admitted that he could leave in this transfer window. Earlier on, towards the end of last season, he spoke about a £40 million fee being what he thinks that David Raya could command. And when you look at some of the stats and look at how he's performed in his time at Brentford already in the Premier League, you can see why that is the case. I mean, played every game last season, only conceded 46 goals, and that was the fifth best defensive record that Brentford have in the Premier League. Considering it's Brentford, that's quite remarkable, really. More saves than anybody else, more passes than anybody else, and you can see why a club like Bayern Munich would be interested in him. And perhaps it's a surprise that other Premier League clubs haven't come in for him. Brentford now in a situation where Mark Flecken was joined the club at the end of May, and I think it was felt that he would be the number one at Brentford, but now you've still got David Raya there. only 1 year left in his contract, which is quite interesting as well. So whether that loan move to Bayern Munich, how that works out, because I'm fairly sure Brentford want a sizable fee. He's done an amazing job since he joined from Blackburn in 2019. A brilliant goalkeeper. I am quite surprised that perhaps Chelsea and Spurs haven't pushed harder to try and sign him.
Well, that brings us back to Spurs, actually, because they've accepted a £12.8 million bid from Spartak Moscow for their centre-back Davinson Sanchez. And the Tottenham boss, Ange Postecoglou, said Sanchez is exploring his options. So why is he being allowed to leave, Sam?
I think it's just never really worked out for Sanchez at Spurs. You know, I said earlier I was quite shocked that he's been there since 2017. He's had a few years to, embed himself into the squad. But every year it always seems, and when you speak to Spurs fans, they're always on the market for a centre-back. You know, they recently got Romero, who is now probably their go-to centre-back, with Dyer, who has the most experience in the squad. Then they also have Tanganga and Rodon, who haven't really... They're in a similar position, but they're younger as well. So I think for him, it's probably best for him to have a new challenge. Last season, he played 18 times, only started. He came 10 times off the bench, and he just never seems comfortable playing for Spurs. When you speak to any Spurs fans, they always say when he's playing, they're always a little bit nervous with how they want to play. And I think when you're playing under a manager like Postecoglou, who wants to play attacking football, he wants to start from the back, I don't think Sanchez fits into that mould as such. So I think they definitely need centre-backs, and he's mentioned it as well, but I don't think Sanchez is up to the task.
What type of centre-backs does Postecoglou like to have? What type of centre-back?
Well, firstly, he'll look to play a 4-3-3 formation, which I think will be quite refreshing. I think a number of Spurs fans got slightly tired of this 5 or 3 at the back formation that was played under Antonio Conte and Jose Mourinho at times. But he's somebody who wants to play attacking football. He's always said he'd rather win a game 4-3 than 1-0. And the centre-backs play quite a key part in building from attack for him. They play with full-backs, inverted full-backs. And he likes having possession, but purposeful possession. So the centre-backs needs to be able to just knock it about the back, not do that. They need to be able to start building attacks and be almost play as sweepers on that halfway line, able to launch attacks from there. So you need to be able to defend well, because Spurs conceded 63 goals in the Premier League last season. So they need to improve upon that. But also they do play a crucial part in Spurs looking to build attacks. It's going to be exciting to watch. I think they will concede a number of goals this season, but I think it'll be good to watch if he gets the men in at centre-back. As I say, Ben Davies and Christian Romero playing at centre-back tonight. Eric Dyer, probably the only other real option. Longley leaving at the end of last season. I think it's been a difficult pre-season. He needs to get someone in very soon, because time is ticking for the start of this Premier League season.
It is. That's why the pre-season matches are going on right now. And 6 minutes into the second half here, Manchester City still 1-0 up against Bayern Munich. The top story here is that Kyle Walker, wanted by Bayern Munich, starts and captains Manchester City today. James McAtee scored after 21 minutes. At half-time, there were 8 changes for Manchester City. Cancelo, Foden, Haaland, Oscar Bob, Rodri, Laporte, Phillips and Gomez all came on at half-time. You'd imagine that over the course of the game they'll probably make all 11 changes. But it is 1-0 to Manchester City at this stage out in Japan. They're not the only team playing right now, because in Singapore it is Tottenham against Lion City Sailors. So 0-0 at the moment, but we've been talking a lot about Harry Kane. As expected, it was a surprise that Kyle Walker was starting and captaining. It's not a surprise that Harry Kane is starting and captaining the side as well. There's the Vicario in goal. Pedro Porro is at the back. As James said, it's Christian Romero and Ben Davies are the 2 centre-backs. Destiny Udogie plays at left-back. They've got Papa Matar Sarr, Yves Bissouma, James Maddison in central midfield, with Dejan Kulusevski and Heung-min Song supporting the captain Harry Kane. But 0-0, 10 minutes gone. Coming up, it looks like there could be 2 outgoings at Newcastle in the coming days, plus West Ham are very active, or trying to be, in the transfer market. The latest on the way. It's a new era for Chelsea under head coach Mauricio Pochettino. During his short spell so far, he's overseen a number of incomings and outgoings. He's confirmed he wants to sign 1 more midfielder, even if Conor Gallagher stays at the club. Chelsea have rejected a £40 million offer from West Ham for the England international.
Conor is in our plan. I was talking with him the first day that he arrived. That is in our plan. And then in football, things can happen. We cannot manage, but at the moment, I think I am happy with him, with his performance. Still 2-year contract, and nothing to say.
Just in that midfield area, do you have a number in your head of how many more midfielders you need? Could you start the season with just one more new midfielder, or is that not enough?
Well, depend of the situation of different player. I think at least we need one more, and we are working on that. But I see it depend of what is happening in the next few weeks. We will decide and we will take a decision.
So, Sam, it seems like he's after a central midfielder. What are their current options in that position already?
So Chelsea have got 5 midfielders, you know, with Enzo, Gallagher, Cassidy, Chukwuemeka, and I'm completely forgetting one now, but they've and Santos, who came in January, just recently got his permit. So obviously he's now able to play, and I think he's started both pre-season games. But as you can see from the players, the average age of Chelsea's midfield is around 21 and 22, and he's mentioned that he wants, you know, reinforcements that have experience. I'm not sure whether that is experience in the Premier League or just experience playing. You know, Maiwa was speaking earlier, he mentioned Verratti, who's 30, would be a great addition, but at the same time, age-wise, wouldn't be. You see Chelsea now linked with Caicedo, who's played in the Premier League for a season and a half, and he's a really good player and someone that Chelsea are going all in for. So I think currently he would obviously, like he said, wants an extra midfielder, and if Gallagher does leave, that might even change. But we've seen a few links with midfielders from Ajax, from midfielders in the Premier League like Lavia. So I think the next few weeks are going to be really important for Pochettino and Chelsea.
Yeah, just checking, because in the past we've always looked at players who are out on loan at Chelsea. I mean, like Bakayoko, been out on loan for years and years, but he's finally gone now, hasn't he, to cut down those options as well. So talking very much about a central midfielder there, James, a lot of Chelsea fans are saying, what about a striker and even a goalkeeper?
Yeah, goalkeeper is a really interesting one. I wonder if this is a similar situation to when Erik ten Hag took over at Manchester United and he realised what the main problem areas were. And yes, whilst he wants a new goalkeeper, it wasn't the main priority at the time, and De Gea did a job for him, more clean sheets than anyone in the Premier League. So I wonder if he's inherited Kepa and he's said that he's going to be the goalkeeper. Well, that's his plan heading into this season. I mean, let's bear in mind, he is the world's most expensive goalkeeper. Incredible, he signed 5 years ago. Maybe we haven't quite seen the best of him. I think it was good for Chelsea as a club that he did get back the #1 shirt last season, because from a business perspective, if he spent another season on the bench, then they would have got no money from whatsoever and made a huge loss. So I think the goalkeeping situation is one to keep an eye on moving forward. A striker, I think they would want a striker, but let's bear in mind Chelsea's recent history of buying strikers. I think since Diego Costa signed, they've simply not got it right when it comes to a number 9, whether it's Lukaku, whether it's Morata, whether it's Aubameyang, and that didn't last very well at all. So the question is, going into this season, Jackson, Raya and Nkunku, will that be enough? Not a huge amount of Premier League experience in terms of goals there. Raheem Sterling, it'll be interesting to see what role he plays this season. It didn't work last year. If he's favoured, he's got a good goal record, so maybe he could be the player to sort them out this season from an attacking third. Last season, their worst goal-scoring season this century. They need to get it right. Whether or not they need another striker, they probably do, but it's not as much of a priority as a centre midfielder.
Well, the Chelsea boss, Mauricio Pochettino, also addressed reports linking the club with a move for Kylian Mbappe.
Would you like to see him playing for Chelsea?
I think in our past we work in Paris Saint-Germain, and with Kylian, I think I need to be conscious that I cannot talk, because everything that you talk maybe is too much noise. I think it's a situation very delicate, and it's a situation that they need to fix in Paris with Kylian with Paris Saint-Germain. And yes, but from our side, nothing to say. I think we are working in our reality. Our reality is different, and of course, they for sure they have another reality. And from my side, nothing to say. Only to support them. Hope that find the best solution for both sides.
Right, Nabeed, so whether Chelsea need a forward or not, or want a forward, if Mbappe is available and, you know, the loan, let's say, or the fee is within their reach, surely they drop everything and they say, I know we don't need it, but we want to go and get him.
You almost don't need my answer because you've got a Chelsea fan next to me just smiling at you asking the question. I think it makes sense for any club that can feasibly afford Mbappe to make the deal happen. James just said about Chelsea's history with forwards. Since Diego Costa in 16-17, they haven't had a striker score more than 20 goals in a season. Now, they could play Sterling through the middle, maybe Mudryk off the left, but if Mbappe's available, Chelsea have the finances to make it happen. Then I think you could offer that to Altrincham FC if they could find the money to sign Mbappe. They're saying yeah as well, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's the type of quality that any team would want. And I don't know if it's realistic, but if he's on the market and you can get a loan deal through, that's not just going to be great for your team, but marketing-wise, everything, it will just benefit any top team in the world.
There could be a genuine problem on a footballing scale. Mudryk cost a lot of money. What are they going to do in Mudryk if Mbappe comes in?
They'll share minutes. You make it work.
Yeah, well, when you talk about realistic there, something that didn't seem realistic would be Tottenham going behind to Lion City Sailors out in the Singapore National Stadium. But that's exactly what's happened. Shawal Anwar, after 14 minutes, have given them the lead, and Tottenham, they've got a strong side out. Kulusevski as well as Kane and Son are all starting for them. However, they are 1-0 down in this one, but there is a long way to go. Back to Newcastle now, and Jamal Lewis is in talks over a move from Newcastle to Watford, and Leeds are in advanced talks with Newcastle over the permanent signing of goalkeeper Carl Darlow. Right, James, does getting players out at Newcastle who weren't involved that much last season, does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. Newcastle have a new challenge. It's a challenge they'll be embracing, but playing Champions League football this season, I think they're slightly ahead of schedule of where they wanted to be. It's quite interesting. When they first had money come into the club, it was about getting them away from the relegation zone to become a mid-table side. But they've accelerated that development. It's how do you get from being a side that finished in the top four, maintain that and maybe go a step further. I think when it comes to Jamal Lewis, he's only played 10 games in the last 2 seasons. So it makes sense. And last season, Newcastle nearly ran out of steam. Eddie Howe using sort of 15, 16 players over the course of the season. I think challenging in the Premier League and the Champions League, he'll need a 25-man squad where he can call upon all those players. So Jamal Lewis wasn't going to be a player that would feature this season. Carl Darlow, probably not either. I think Newcastle well stocked when it comes to goalkeepers. Karius has signed a new deal with the club, I think. So there were 5 or 6 players in that squad who didn't really make many contributions last season. Jamal Lewis being one of them, and Carl Darlow, of course, out on low at the time as well. So they need a strong squad, they need strong players in each position, and also fitting within financial fair play. They need to try and offload a few players, albeit Jamal Lewis is going on loan.
Yeah, if they let Lewis go, they can bring in a new left-back, so the left-back and target can be in that position. Dan Burn can go back into centre-back, I suppose. But let's hear from Eddie Howe on those potential exits.
Jamal Lewis is probably the nearest to securing a loan move to Watford. That one is in the pipeline. Looks like that will get done in probably the next 24 hours.
The other two, Ashby and Corolla?
The other two, no, nothing close, I don't think.
And Carl Darlow going to Leeds?
Yeah, again, Carl, that's a possible one that might happen within the next few days. Carl would certainly go with our best wishes these days. He's been an incredible servant to the football club. We value him very highly, but we can't carry a team of 5 goalkeepers.
As Newcastle got a quick update from West Ham, there's plenty to say actually. They've held initial talks with Manchester United over the signings of Harry Maguire and Scott McTominay. Early suggestions indicated gap in valuations for both players. As for West Ham, they've also held positive talks with Southampton over the signing of James Ward-Prowse. One source told us an agreement is getting closer. Personal terms won't be a problem, and West Ham not giving up on signing midfielder Conor Gallagher from Chelsea. £40 million bid rejected, but talks are ongoing. Right, thank you to Nabeed, Sam and to James. We've got Good Morning Transfers back tomorrow at 9 a.m. and Transfer Talk is at midday. And tonight you've got the Transfer Show at 5 and 7 as well. Loads more to come. Transfer throughout the day on Sky Sports News.